It's almost there. We go. What is up, everyone? It is Nico and Richard here, and I'm honored. Frankly, I have a lot of guests on, and there are very few people that I've been connected to for so long, and actually been following their content for about a year and a half now. So I'm just excited to have a great conversation with Richard.
Appreciate it, man. Thank you so much. It's been been connected far too long to have not actually had a proper chat like this. So thanks so much for having me on the show. I really appreciate it.
Of course, of course. And the best intros I've always found are through my guests. So Richard, give us the intro.
Okay, so I won't go too in depth. Although maybe we do have forever because we're all in lockdown and I can talk all night. So I mostly coach corporates on sales technique. And that's decent sales technique that actually converts and doesn't irritate people. By extension, I work with a lot of marketers as well. And really my sweet spot is understanding the empathy for how a prospect is feeling in certain moments when you're approaching them cold and things like that. So that's allowed me to be very relevant to people who are approaching online, people who are approaching in volume, and people who are approaching prospects, in fact, for larger figure deals as well. So that's been my sweet spot. I help a lot with content on places like LinkedIn as well, because I've been a practitioner there for some time. And some will know I have my hobby or baby in the background that's on hold for the time being because of the virus, which is Entrepreneur Business Live, the events. We've done about 25, 26 around the world, and they raise money for charity through networking with entrepreneurs. So that's been a fun thing to do. Although I'm having a breather from it at the moment with us all in lockdown. I'm actually, Nico, I'm meant to be flying back from Miami today, and I'm not. So it sucks. But I'm here with you, so I mean that's all good, right?
It's Nico or Miami,
I mean, I would have cancelled if I'd known there was this anyway.
No, oh my goodness, you're so kind. Richard, I have a question. Before we jumped on, we were kind of talking about the whole situation with marketing right now, and you said something that stood out to me, which was, this has happened again. Now, I know by your background that you actually love history almost as much as I do. You love it as much or more because you got a degree in it.
Two degrees.
Two degrees, huh? There you go.
Too much money to not say two.
Oh, you have. I mean, listen, you spent the money. We have to say two. Why should we not be? Let me rephrase. Is today the end of the world? Like, should we just cut all our sales and marketing and just go home and this thing is permanent, right?
What part? The virus and effect?
Yes, the virus.
Okay, so it's such an interesting question because the answer always depends on the person. And for every 5 people I engage with who are like, it's over, I can't, like it's happening to me, and so I'm stuck. There's someone who's like, no, this is the challenge, this is the fun, this is like and it's just that every 10 years you get something, and it comes in different guises. In the very early 2000s, it was 9/11. It was massive lockdown and everything changed and everyone was reticent about stuff. And then, in the mid 2007, we had the London bombings. That was a nightmare as well. And that affected us locally for a bit. Then, of course, we had the recession about in 2008. And then we've got this. And those that choose to allow it to be something that pins them and makes them not unable to move, and so they can't think expansively, they tend to not do so well. And of course, there are some people in very difficult situations that aren't so blessed with all their faculties, or maybe have particular commitments, or only know a particular industry. But for anyone working in, for instance, the online space, or those spaces that aren't massively affected by it, that their attitude should be, I can choose to fight back and make the most. Because in every time of adversity, I don't need to tell you this, everyone says it and everyone knows it, in any adversity, there's the opportunists, there's the people who look for an angle on how they could make best the situation, and they're the ones who thrive and win. And it comes in different forms, but people look for the opportunities. And what's crucially important, back to your question, is that we understand that there's never going to be a going back to how we were. Things will be markedly different. It won't be the case that we are wholly different. The world won't suddenly do everything online, but culturally, this is going to be weird. for 5 weeks or so, which isn't long, we've not been engaging with people in the same way as we used to. And we will move to a place where, you know, shaking hands is going to be like, this is strange. This is something I need to really learn again. And touch and socializing and things can be really weird. And so business for some will have to change. So I think that you have to decide, am I going to basically own the situation or let it happen to me? And I'm absolutely of the former persuasion. And whilst it's terrible what the world's going through, at the same time, I'm up for it. And even if I crash and burn, I'm up for it. And I love moments of challenge. I really brings the best out of me. And I really hope everyone else should be feeling the same.
Yeah, it's interesting because when I'm selecting any business or any industry, my first thing is, what uphill battle am I tackling? And is it something that I want to actively go after? Like with marketing and whatnot. And that's why I'm so excited for you to be honest. I've always been under the impression that if you are your authentic self, and I know that's a buzzword now, you can actually have tangible business outcomes. And that's an uphill battle that I'm fighting, much like with you. So I actually want to bring it back to what you actually do for salespeople, because I've done cold calling in the past, and I much rather prefer creating content than cold calling. So walk us through the average salesperson that you actually the mindset of the salespeople that you talk to.
Yeah, it's really interesting because there is a lot of commonality across them all. And my first job was cold calling and selling internet marketing back 17 years ago. And it's interesting to see there's commonality with those roles and with those that need to sell or have to sell. And, you know, we inhabit a space where there's a lot of smaller businesses and solopreneurs and people like that who are doing everything themselves. And business owners often have to sell, if not internally on a concept, they have to actually be the reason why there's kind of money in the bank. And I think there's this worry that sales needs to look a certain way. And what's weird is that we're actually we're naturally all very good at selling, in the sense that we're good at communicating with people and persuading on a point typically. But that normally is in the social sphere. And that's when we're just communicating and speaking. And much like this conversation, there will be plenty of moments where we convince one another of something. Even just an idea and opinion is still a sale, in the sense that I'm delivering it to you with a level of conviction that persuades you that actually, Richard must believe that then. And so that level of believability comes from just the nuances in communication that we're all masters at by the time we're not that old. And what's strange is that people have this hang up that the selling side of business for them needs to take a different form. And the truth is that those that actually thrive and do best in selling, who aren't meant to be salespeople, they're the ones that are just kind of thrust into it. And those who are the true pros often aren't over the top with structures, formulas, and theory. They're way more about the connection. And one of the most kind of the best news, if you like, for someone who is operating in sales but maybe a bit reticent or worried about what they're going to be put through, is that really by just being, I hate this word authentic, but we have to use it, but by being authentic and just being a normal person the way you would in the offline world, you tend to find that people are quite cool with speaking to you. And cold calling has its place, because the truth is, if you need to make money now, like today, then cold calling is of course difficult and requires a certain skill set, but it also requires some perseverance. But I would not be putting out posts on LinkedIn to try and generate deals today. I would be, if I was at a standing start, I would be getting on the phone and manually making that situation a reality. Or the worst case, I'd be getting into direct messages and manually making the situation a reality. So I do think that, I said this recently to someone, that there's a whole spectrum of what sales looks like. And you have the very wonderful consultative side on one end, all the way through, in fact, to people who are getting just inbound sales because, you know, their content is effective. And then on the other end, you've got those that just don't really care and are just calling because ultimately there may be a quick buck in it for them. So we need to choose, and we need to remember that the more human you are, the more you get the most important part of any deal, which is trust.
And it's so true. I think one of the best best skills I've ever not, I wouldn't say mastered, because you can't really master cold calling. There's always a different type of science, and there's always experimenting. That's what I liked about that. I'm actually doing it today for one of the brands that we're launching. It's trying to find a product market fit. So walk us through. I think the biggest problem a lot of businesses face, especially right now, when it's frankly a lot harder to, and for many businesses, whether in the food or hospitality, to actually find people who are wanting the services that you have, right? Whether directly or indirectly. What's the hang up for most, solopreneurs, entrepreneurs on making those initial calls?
The problem, because you asked a slightly different question as well in there. The problem that most businesses have is that they haven't been laying the foundation. They haven't been warming the audience, which is why every time you're getting these emails now from, Microsoft or from Amazon or from the local supermarket about COVID-19 and how they're being so great and doing their bit and trying to help you and all that kind of thing. It's like, yeah, whatever. I get this from everyone. And how come you weren't in touch with me before? The issue that most people have, most businesses have, is that they weren't warming their audience throughout. Marketing and sales shouldn't be a momentary thing. It should be a constant thing. It goes beyond a campaign. It is a continued process. That's why content for me, for instance, goes out every day, because I'm constantly in a state of wanting to warm an audience. The hang-ups that a lot of people have is that money was easy before everyone stopped spending it. And it's no different to 2008. It was easy to get money. Then it was frozen. And then it's really genuinely about, are you able to sell something? And you can't hide behind hope as a strategy. You have to genuinely get on the field and try now. And the hang up most people have, I believe, and it sounds cynical, Nika, but the hang up is one everyone knows how to solve but doesn't really want to, which is have to actually recognize there aren't shortcuts. There's no app or integration or bots that will cut corners. Oh, but bots will throw up lots of these. Yes, but the best way to ensure that you get oxygen for your business, which is cash in the bank, is manually getting on the pitch or in the trenches or whatever, metaphor you want, and doing for a massive amount of your day. It's the same as when you start a business. It's the same as when you're in trouble as a business. And those companies that have disproportionately always focused on the sales element, and I know some that put all of their money into a robust sales team rather than anything else, they're the ones that have the ability to survive and in fact go better and thrive, because they're not trusting or hoping for other things. When it's harder, you have to be the difference. And it's not, oh man, everyone's hanging up on me, no one's interested, I've made 7 calls this morning. It should be like, you don't sleep tonight, sorry, you need to keep going. And sometimes that's what's required. And sometimes you have to not think about work-life balance because you may have more of a necessity. My business has payroll, I have to pay the staff. And so you don't get to just not do it because it's quite hard. You have a responsibility. And I think the hang up is that you can't go around this in any other way. If you get lucky and someone responds to your email shot, well done. And I'm the first person to say that content marketing works really well, but you can't beat dialing the number yourself. You can't beat sending out connections yourself. Ideally, they come to you, but it doesn't work like that in the real world, especially when people are focused on themselves, which is what's happening right now.
Absolutely. It's a salad, right? Like, you don't make any good salad by just having a tomato there, right? Like,
exactly right. You should be doing a bit of everything.
Yeah, you need to do everything. Goodness, and I get it. It's after the 15, 16, 17 of no's. It's just a lot of averages, right? So it's hard. Like, it's very easy for us to say that, but unless you're in the trenches doing it, man, I remember days and days and days, and you've probably been there too, where
of course. The thing to remember is it's never a loss when someone says no, because if you end it amicably, what you've done is you've put yourself front and center of their mind, and now might not be the right time. And it's the same when you're connecting with new people every day. I mean, everyone should be, at the very least for building their network, because you never know what role you may have in the future as well. Everyone should be every day connecting with whatever your target is, you say to yourself, 10 new people a day, have a meaningful conversation, because if they're not buying now, you may be warming someone for 3 months time. And again, this is for those business who literally can't transact right now, because I was reading about someone earlier today who's a painter and decorator. He can't go in people's houses and paint, and people aren't so interested in that in this moment. But what he can do is remind them that he's there. He can call all the people he's worked with and check in and just say hi. And there's a business I'm working with where one of the points of focus for them right now is just keeping the conversation going and having people go, who are these guys, in front and center of mind, starting conversations each day and things like that. And that hurts for a business to have to admit sometimes that that's their best course for the next few months. But sometimes that's a good idea, and that's why it's worth doing the volume, because you never know what you'll get out of it.
It's absolutely true, and right now is the best time. The fact that so many businesses are on have so much more free time because now they're not cleaning as much because their lobbies aren't open. Now is the time you invest. So I want to actually circle back into an interesting part, because I think the average person sees people like us as marketers as we're only online or we're only offline. The truth is, we are not. We're in the middle. I want you to talk about why you still do events, why you actually are in the event space still, but yet you do online marketing and sales and all that.
You're asking why I'm doing events?
Yeah. So why events? Because the average person, in my opinion, they see a marketer as either online or offline completely. There's really no mix. And
I think it's an interesting question. What I'm looking at always is, where can I gain attention, and where can I deploy my value to gain to ultimately convert that attention either into good feeling that may convert to something else, another opportunity in the future, or legacy, or indeed a sale. So if there's an opportunity to be effective in marketing online or offline, then I'll take it. So there's no preference. It's just where I can be most effective. Now with the events, it was a case of saying, look, in 2007, 2008, I was working in part of an events business. And so I knew that world quite well. I always knew I could sell as well. And I thought, I'm gaining something of an audience. I'm gaining something of attention. And I remember going to a networking event a few months before I launched mine. I was like, this is rubbish. It's rubbish. And what it was they managed to get a few people in a room, and the people who are speaking were, the type that are like, put your hand up if you want to be a millionaire kind of speak. Like, I'm like, well, you're bad at speaking. Half the stuff you're telling us isn't right. And I was just like, I felt like at one point, like turning around and saying, are you actually listening to this like nonsense? And it was like people who wanted to speak but who had no experience as a practitioner really in what they were talking about. And it's like, why am I not just reading a book on this then? Because it's rubbish. So I was getting a bit ranty about it with myself, and it was funny because I went to the person who was organizing the event. I was like, I really need to speak at your next event, I think, to kind of, let's just sort this out. But then I looked before, like, why don't I? So I did, in fact, as well.
That's great.
But what I thought to myself, why don't I run my own events? Because I did do some speaking before. I never want to be a public speaker. That's not my vibe. But I get asked to speak and lecture, everything from universities to companies anyway. But I thought, look, the more you talk, the more it positions you well, helps get your message out, and ultimately it's a top of funnel thing. It allows me to get photos, it allows me to get video, it allows me to engage with an audience, it allows me to meet people afterwards and potentially get new leads. There's a lot of upside to it. There's a bit of work, but seriously, it's not hard. Book a venue, tell people you're going to be there. It's not hard. And so what I thought was, I can leverage the attention I've got and start my own networking events, because I get to meet new people every month or so. And within so I literally just did 2 of them. I thought, no one will take me seriously unless it's international. So August 2018, I announced, like, let's do one internationally. So we did a New York one in the January last year. And I was like, I'm just going to go crazy. So we were doing 2 a month. We've been doing Melbourne, Toronto, Barcelona, San Francisco, Chicago, like all over the world. It's been really good fun. And but what I did was I said, right, I'll ticket the event, but basically any money made from the ticket, or $10, £10, £10 or €10 from the tickets, which were like £15 anyway, will go to a local charity. And what it was I got to this point quite early on in running the events where I was like, it's almost immoral that you can gain a load of attention and not use it to do good. And I started feeling bad, genuinely. It sounds like it sounds like cute, but I genuinely mean it. I felt bad that I was pocketing the money and simultaneously supporting a charity. And I was like, it's just not right. So I made a decision in Q4 of last year. I'm really pleased I did it, where it's like, do you know what? We'll make the events free and we'll ask for donations. And if someone wants to donate, then fine. And I knew it would happen. We got more attendees. Some of them donated, and we actually made the same amount of money as we would have if it was a paid event. And now all the money goes to charity. So last year we raised $5,000 for charities around the world, doing really great things. And that's why I run the events. It's because, sure, it's great to learn and it's great to network, and it's a good way of validating a trip around the world, like this week, going to Miami for 2 days, and that was meant to be here. Yeah, I mean, here's or we were going to do one in Phoenix, in fact, where you are. And, really, so like to meet people, but simultaneously to use the event to drive money into a local charity really means a lot to me. So there's good in that, and I feel like the events have got a really, they've got a lovely vibe to them. People got behind them. The Miami one, which we've since postponed, within like 24 hours, we got 60 tickets gone because we had 180 capacity. And I was just like, this is awesome. And all these people are going to donate and things like that. And I just feel, I know it's a pause right now, but I'm looking forward to it coming back.
Yeah, and I think, we're talking about the fact that people will be a little bit more cautious going to events like these, but you can't we're social animals, right? I think the event space is going to do extraordinarily well a quarter, maybe two after this whole thing, because I think people are generally craving attention. Not attention, social.
I think you're right, but I think what the online events will serve to identify is that online events are just as good as offline events when it comes to learning. The genuine reason why an offline event is so powerful is because absolutely meeting face-to-face and networking is the best and most valuable part.
Couldn't agree more.
And that doesn't, I was involved in 2007 in a virtual conference concept, and we were selling it where, you go to a virtual booth and you have virtual hangout and chat. And I was like, this is not as good as meeting in real life. And unless we have VR headsets, no one's going to do that. It just makes sense to have the offline, because you're right. It's nice, the romantic idea of being able to work from home and work from your laptop. But until you've done it, I've done it for 7 years now, you realize that actually you need to be around people. So as much as possible each week, I like being in other people's offices. It's good to be around them. And that's just not just me. You're right. It's a human thing. We, as animals, need to be around others, and it won't ever change. No problem.
A small, I don't know if this is a hacker or anything, but when I go to a conference, right, I make sure that the conferences I go to, number one, the audience I want is there, but I never go to the learning sessions because the vast majority of them are on, recorded, and if you bought a ticket and you have access to them. I only go for the people because I know that if someone's seen my content online, it's so different. And you're probably the same way. You see
I am. I remember one I went to last year, where I went to a few of them, but it's because I was fanboying the brand and or wanted to meet the speaker for strategic reasons. So it was intelligent and literally paid to watch their talk. But otherwise, it's like, there are thousands of people here. What am I doing sitting, not speaking to people when so you dip in and out. But I agree, like 2/3 of the events for me are meeting, aggressively meeting people as much as possible, not selling, just being a great guy that's memorable. And if you do that bit right, you really end up winning it in the long run.
Oh, absolutely. And I have converted more people from just meeting them at events, connecting with them on LinkedIn. And then 2-3 months after the event, they were like, hey, we met at this event. I don't know if you remember. I'm like, yep, exactly.
That's exactly right. Yeah. And that's one of the big tips in selling. And it's difficult because a company will send someone to an event and will want them to go, like a trade show. They'll want them to go and pitch everyone, but no one wants to be pitched at a trade show. And they're like, this is really awkward. It's actually way better to go to these events and just connect, like have a good chat, be the interesting guy. You do the talk, you do the pitch afterwards, you arrange it for another day. It's far better just to be interesting and hang out, because otherwise people are like, I'll catch up with you soon. And you have very short conversations because everyone wants to get away from you. I remember that event in particular. This one was in Milan, and it was really good. So as long as you're just hanging out and have fun, suddenly you're like, it's 3 a.m. and we're having shots all together now. This is fun. Because you get invited to that stuff because you're not trying to pitch them. And you get the shot later down the line because you really cemented the relationship. And of course, there again is the trust. And that's really where the sales lies. One thing to really take away from that kind of environment, and indeed when you're approaching one-on-one online, is that your ability to hold your breath and be patient as you are engaging with people, and trust that the relationship gets the deal, not always the fancy one-liners. And there'll be some people watching this guide, but I'm the greatest person in the world at sales and I'm so good at closing people in one line. Well, good for you, but most will need warming up. And the truth is, it's far more sustainable and way more fulfilling for both parties when you work on the relationship first. You know, we may buy from each other in the future. It's very much more likely because we're hanging out than because you sent me a newsletter that I rapidly try and unsubscribe from. Although your newsletters, I'm sure, are wonderful.
Oh no, it's listen, not the best writer, but I still agree. The fact is, and I want people to understand, when you go to sell anything, you have to qualify the person beforehand, right? Even before so it's work. You didn't pitch the person right off the bat, because you have to qualify it. And going to conferences, going to these events, even networking online, you want to just get to know the person, and see if they have the problem that you're trying to solve. You read a lot of books.
Yes, I do. Quite a lot. Yes.
That's you, and you were actually one of the. So I was a huge person on. I'm gonna read and listen to books, but really after watching your content, I was like, you know what? Yeah. You're always talking about books, and you're right, and that's actually why we're starting to build back there. And so, what's been your most, because again, you probably have favorites, but in the last 6 months, what's one book that you've read that you're like that was worth it?
Last 6 months, let me have a look. I have a lot. I have like floor to ceiling shelves back there. I would say, let me think. I really enjoyed, I don't know if it's 6 months away, I really enjoyed Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink, the guy who's a Navy SEAL. I really enjoyed The Upstarts.
Ooh, that's
Brad Stone. He wrote the Everything Store about Amazon, which was a spectacular biography of it a few years ago. And the other one, what was it? Business Adventures. I'm still on it at the moment, but I'm reading that for a second time by a guy called John Brooks. Bill Gates said it's the best business book he's ever read. It's endorsed by like Warren Buffett and that. And it's really interesting about moments where a person had to make a particular decision on something. If I may add, though, there's a book I dip into every single month, at least once. It's like a KPI of mine. And I've read this book for 6 or 7 years at least, which is Seneca's On the Shortness of Life. Seneca's obviously thousands of years old, this philosopher. And it's like 60 pages. He's a great kind of stoic philosopher. But what's really important is when you read it, you realize, it's just a really good perspective on what time you have and what you don't have. And nothing gets me more that's definitely my favorite book of all time. Nothing gets me more motivated than reading that. The other one I'm reading at the moment is a bit of a bedtime story. It's like this thick. Is Titan about Rockefeller. So it's one of those where you're like, wow, I've got a long way to go. But it's quite interesting. I thought I'd just dig in and have a look there. So I do read a lot, yeah.
That's so, and I think that's what I've noticed with successful people. And there's exceptions to the rules. People who don't read, specifically Gary Vee's of the world. But in my opinion, it's such a cheap way to gain years and years of experience through books. And one thing that I do remember from your content is you do. So, like you mentioned, you have a couple books that you're reading, right?
Yeah.
When you're going into selecting specifically books, what's your criteria? Because there's a plethora of them. But I'm hearing
books, yeah.
Yeah, so I'm carrying like business books to philosophy books. What do you when you go into selecting one to start? What is it? Because to me, I've reached a certain ceiling. It's like, okay, all the well known ones, I got those down, right?
Mhm.
But the next level, it's like, wow, there's like a whole ocean. It can be
Yeah,
overwhelming.
I know what you mean, and I think it's exactly the same decision. You see, I consume a lot more than I read because I'm on Audible, so I
Hmm.
smash through books that way as well. It's very rare. Let me put it this way: I choose the books I read in the same way as I choose the people I listen to, and I only listen to people who know what they're talking about when they're
Hmm.
talking about a particular thing. I'm respectful and I allow people to have a point of view, and you can tell exceedingly quickly if someone has no idea what they're talking about, or if they have, which is the dangerous place, which is when they have a bit of knowledge on what they're talking about, and they're trying to school you, and it's just like, I don't have time for it. There are enough people out there who are world class at certain things. You should only listen to them. It's the perfect example right now, and I really want to be careful here because I don't talk politics, I don't talk about stuff like that. But
Same.
with coronavirus, I mean, the people you should be listening to are the virologists, the ones who have spent 35 years understanding and learning from those virologists that came before them how the thing spreads. There's a guy online, I'm not going to mention his name, but there's a guy online who happens to who's a conspiracy theorist. He used to be a sports broadcaster. I'm not going to say that. He used to be a sports broadcaster. He has no medical background whatsoever. He knows nothing of coronavirus. This person also, for the record, thinks that we're reptilian or something like that. And there's all that kind of conspiracy nonsense. And this is the guy that thinks that 5G towers are spreading coronavirus. And it's just like, that's the perfect example. And a lot of people love that kind of thing because it's fun, it's fantasy. And what an exciting world it is when all these conspiracy theories. The truth is, you should listen to the people who clearly have the knowledge in the space, not the ones, and then like Freud said it, was it Freud or Nietzsche, who said the best way to put it, which is conviction is the enemy of truth. And those people, when they're like, oh, I have definite knowledge I have the definite knowledge of which thing is right and wrong, you should really worry about that. And then they're not citing evidence and things like that. And same for books, same for the people you listen to. When I want advice on something, I was saying this to a friend recently, they have a 6-figure business, they want to be a 7-figure business. Their mentor has never taken a business to a 7-figure business. I was like, maybe it's time to start shopping around for someone. They've got you this far, it's time to go to someone else because they might be able to get you there, but maybe you should speak to someone who's an expert. And so it's just crucial to learn from people who know what they're doing. And that's the same for books. So I do like I do like reading biographies, but of people who have really made a big impact. It doesn't mean I don't read the books of those who are still on the climb, because sometimes they have a fascinating story, and on occasion there'll be an interesting reason as to why their book's worth reading. But for every fantastic book that there is out there, there's a million written by nobodies who are jumping on a bandwagon on a subject that's hot, and you've got to watch that because the writing might not be that particularly valuable. Plus, why would you choose that book when you can go for the person who's really made it with demonstrable evidence? And it really matters to me that, because you've only got so much time and you can't spend it all reading books that are just crap. So it makes sense to choose them wisely, isn't it?
There's few people that I'm just like, yes. And it's true, right? It's absolutely true. In the last part, I think we can have a whole day talking about the fact that we just don't have enough time, right? Like, you got to be very cautious of the time and where you spend it. That's why I talk about active versus passive social media. Got to be active if you're spending time on these platforms.
Yeah, I agree, and that's an interesting pivot, perhaps, because on social media, I get the same as you. I think you described, where people seem to think I'm online all the time.
Yep,
I'm not. I'm actually working for clients most of the time. But 1% of the time I am online, it's a very meaningful, intentional set of moments where I've decided I've scheduled, for instance, half an hour where I'll be engaging with a set number of posts or set group of people. I'll be like, right, these people I know have got legit content. I'm going to check them out. I'll maybe look at some new stuff as well. But I will do that. I will fulfill that task for half an hour or so. And then it's like, get off now.
Yep.
Like, go to particular profiles, find the content, read it, engage with it, do something with it, and then go. And that's it. Because otherwise you're like, oh, I'll just scroll for a bit now. You know, it's no different to if I choose to watch a particular YouTube video because it's something valuable or interesting to me. When it's finished, move on. As opposed to, oh, look, there's this, and then this.
Suggested.
And that's how we move to a place where it's like, I'm busy. I've got no time. I've got no time at all. It's like you have if you're just that much more intentional. And I really believe that there's great productivity and great success and great outcomes in being exceptionally intentional. Yeah. And I will put in a business call to close a deal is just as important as scheduled downtime with my wife or children, or, you know, in the morning exercising myself, or even eating or making myself a coffee. That stuff, people think it's really robotic to schedule everything, but when you schedule it like that, when it gets done, and then there's no slippage and wasted time, and it feels good to not have a bloated amount of your day spent on social media with only a small kernel of value in there, and not do other events and not do other tasks. It's far better to get everything done, and by doing perhaps a little bit less of certain things that would otherwise take a lot of your time. There are very few people in the world who are paid a fortune to scroll through. I can't think of it.
That was good.
In the same way as there's very few people who are paid to game, for instance. If I was Ninja, it makes sense for me to game all day long. If I'm taking time out to game, because Nia Ayal, you possibly have interviewed him, I don't know, but a wonderful guy who wrote Indistractable. It's like a New York Times bestseller. He was saying, you know, there's nothing wrong with things like chilling or doing nothing if you schedule it for yourself, because it's a really good way of saying, I'm going to take this time to intentionally do nothing. I'm going to intentionally game. I'm intentionally going to waste an hour and play Fortnite because actually I just want to have some time out for my brain. But then when that time's up, it's time for bed or time for dinner or time to work or whatever. And I think being spontaneous is wonderful. Being able to be flexible and agile is important, but it's also good to say, well, what kind of outcomes do I need from the day? And if my day needs to include exercise, hanging with the family, doing my work for clients, closing a deal, and gaming because, hey, I like it, well, then fine, but make sure I nail those things down. So I think that, like, we've gone on to productivity, but really how we make sure that social media is used as a tool and doesn't own us and control us is crucial.
No, I could not agree more, because it might seem redundant to have everything scheduled out, but you just get so tired and so, you know, kind of distraught if you don't do it, if you don't schedule things out, and it's not a habit, right? That's why it's easier not to create content or not to go to networking events or not to do the work. But yeah, so we're at the tail end of the show. This is called the Soapbox, where if you could get on the soapbox and give the world any piece of wisdom about marketing, sales, productivity, what would that be?
I think it can be really simple, actually. The thing I'd say is, let's take it from the marketing and content and social media space, because this is one we operate in, is that you must never discount the value of working in the community and working on the connections you've got. And it seems to the outsider or to the newbie that producing content is the game. It's not. Content is a tool. It provides a magnet for people to come and see you. The game is the one-on-ones, the engagement in the posts, the DMs, the voice memos while the kettle's boiling for a cup of tea, the engagement with the people themselves, with the audience that you'd like to come and orbit around you. That is where you should spend your time. So in sales and in marketing as much as possible, and why wouldn't you want to anyway? It's meeting and connecting with new people every day. If you choose, and again, it's a choice, if you choose to marginalize that because of almost always it's fear, and as an excuse, you're like, yeah, but I need to polish the website today. And in the middle of the day, when you're at your cerebrally best, and when people are awake and able to speak to you, you're choosing to muck about with a spreadsheet or something,
Mhm.
when your business, if that is the case, when your business actually needs you on the ground and selling, then you are avoiding the thing that matters the most. So you cannot lose when you engage and connect with more people, but do it meaningfully. You know, it's not about who has the most connections or followers. It's like that flex is not impressive. We were both lit fans on LinkedIn. You have people who talk about how many online connections that are called lions on the LinkedIn on, and it's like, I'm in no way impressed. That's like saying you own a phone book. Who cares? Like, who do you have? No, it's right though. Who do you have who if you posted a piece of content would say, oh my God, Nico's just posted, I will check that out. Who have you got who won't even think about it but will like that, will react to it straight away? That comes from you investing in your community, and that's where the majority of your time should be spent, because you never know. And the number one thing about 2020, or this online age at least, is that you're never engaging with just one person. Every person has a network, small or large, they have a network. And that in turn means, to make your lovely pun, it means you can grow virus-like, because, you know, for every 10 people you reach, you may be reaching 327 because they have networks between them that may see you as well. So it's worth that investment. And it's worth going on the odd podcast if it's half decent and has a good following like yours, for instance.
Oh, I appreciate that. Half decent, you got totally right. Well, at the end, it's sad, but you know, I've this has been such a fantastic conversation, and I'm so glad you took time out of your day, very, very intentionally, to talk to us today. So this is the plug hour, and I know there's a specific event that we talked about that you want to plug, and I'm going to drop the URL right now. And as I do that, tell us where we're going to be speaking at in a couple of days.
So yeah, in the spirit of not wanting to hard sell anyone, this is completely free. I'm very intentional about where I spend my time, and that includes events. Usually mine, because they're awesome, but also, and they're well curated, but also the ones that are worth going to. In Milan last year, I was very kindly invited by the organizers of Digital Design Days to speak. So this is an event that had the likes of Rodeo FX, who did Stranger Things special effects, the likes of IBM were there, HP were there, Spotify, Media Monks, all the top names in digital design and marketing and creativity and AR and VR and tech and stuff like that. An amazing event, about 3,000 people there, and low, like surprise, I spoke about LinkedIn, and there will be another event. It is penned for October again in Milan, but in the meantime, that Filippo, who's the founder and curator, has organized Digital Design Days online. It's not replacing it, is in addition to kind of keep us going. It's a marathon. You've got to understand, this guy is one of the most connected people in this kind of space. So it's over 100 speakers across 3 days, the 6th to the 8th of May. And it's got, Procter & Gamble, PepsiCo, Dropbox, Richard Moore, people like that speaking against creativity and digital design, and I'm talking about distribution through LinkedIn, for example. Some of the most amazing household names they're sending, and I've looked. It's not the joke person who's an intern; it's their lead creative or group head of design or something like that. So I urge you all to check it out. 6th to the 8th. If you go to ddd.it, you can register. So it's about 3 weeks' time. I know last week, they'd got over 6,000 registrants already. So just jump in, make sure you get it. If you're gonna watch an online event, you might as well watch the world's greatest people who are at the best brands. They're there for a reason. It's because they're really talented. So I couldn't plug it enough. I think it's a really great event, and I can't wait for it, to be honest. So I urge everyone to jump in and check it out.
And again, it's as he's talking, I'm looking at the website. And anytime you see a good website like this, it's a good indication. But
it should be good, right? It's a digital design event, so it should look slick.
Yeah, it should look good.
I totally agree.
And it looks like the sign-up process is very, very easy. They have some huge names here. I'm just scrolling through the website. It's great. But anyway, I digress. Richard, thank you so much for being on. Where can people find you besides LinkedIn? And let me just grab your URL.
Yeah, so you can jump on LinkedIn. I'm Richard James Moore. Annoyingly, someone taken Richard Moore, but common name. There are.
Rude today.
And indeed, they've taken richardmoore.com, so it's the Richard Moore. Otherwise, you'll like it. There's a South African photographer who has richardmoore.com, and I tried to buy it, but he wouldn't give up his website, so his domain. So the richardmoore.com, and you can see all my other channels there, such as Instagram and so on. Or send me an email. I'm happy to talk, because why not? So richard@richardmoore.com. But yeah, I'll be in your posts and comments otherwise, and yeah, it'd be nice to meet your audience there.
Yeah, and here's the thing. It's like sorry, I'm grabbing this link. Like I always tell anyone, when we have shows like this, the most critical thing to me is that you actually get to learn from real people. Like I said, I don't think any other time in history it's been so easy to meet people who have authority, actually have expertise, and are willing to talk to you. They're one direct message away. I reached out to Richard a year ago and just said, hey, like, love your content, and this is, we've had voice messages before. He actually got me into sending more voice messages because he did it, and I was like, oh, it's pretty nice.
I'm a big fan of it, yeah.
A little bit more personal. So please make sure that you connect with him and ask him questions. Like, he's on here very intentionally, and he's always building relationships. So make sure that you reach out to him. But besides that, Richard, we're gonna cut it here. Thank you so much for being on.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure, and look after yourself.